Here we go, man. Let's strap in. We got Western Conference Finals action for both your Stars and your Mavericks. We begin with the Mavericks, though, as they will be starting tomorrow evening. The Stars have yet another day to be able to prepare for theirs against Edmonton on Thursday. So let's start looking at what this series is. Let's start trying to break down maybe the X's and O's of the ways that this thing matches up between the Mavs and the Timberwolves.
Real quick, because you do love the names of buildings. It was the Continental.
It was the Continental, because
like
the Prudential Center I think they opened in 2007. So I apologize for that one.
No,
you the OG. I should lean on you.
I used to go there.
Yeah,
I had
right.
Cover games there.
I ain't never been there.
Yeah.
So
by the way, it was raggedy. You want to hear something crazy about that building?
Absolutely.
It was raggedy. They moved it to Brooklyn at one point. But when it was in New Jersey, that Continental Arena, they pumped in fake crowd noise.
Oh, wow.
And it was too loud. And we had to talk over this. I'm doing the Fox Sports Southwest broadcast, what Skin does now. I was a courtside report. I was like, this is crazy. We're talking, the building ain't even full. And they're having this fake crowd noise in there. It'll give you a headache.
I remember. The reason why I didn't remember that it was called the Continental Airlines Arena, because I remember when it was called the Izod Center. I remember that for a short period of time.
Yeah.
That's the one I remember too.
Mm-hmm.
Again, things that don't necessarily matter, but sometimes you got to stop down and talk about.
I only bring it up because I love the fact that Reg is really good in remembering names.
I don't know why.
Of buildings and stadiums and arenas.
Well, I'm decent because apparently I didn't remember the Continental Airlines Arena properly.
But like I said, I give you credit because again, it's not like you go to them.
You're right. I'm not going to them.
You just cover them and broadcast about it.
I'm a Wikipedia hound apparently, and
you can be on Jeopardy.
I think I could. I don't think that I'd be like a champion, but I'd hold my own.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of holding their own, both of these teams are going to have a lot of holding their own to do, as this is quite the matchup, as you'd expect in a conference finals. It's going to be tough. You're going to get some really good teams. It's very rare that you get a bad matchup, and it's just not that interesting. And so it's Mavs, it's Timberwolves, and we talk about the arenas, of course, the American Airlines Center, but we begin with the Target Center in Minneapolis.
I've been there a few times too.
I'm certain, and we're going to see the team go there. They're going to play tomorrow evening, and so what are you expecting to see? 877-881-1053 in game one, and maybe over the course of the series as well, trying to figure out what this matchup is. And I know one of the first places that we go is defense. Defense is going to matter greatly in these series. And the first place that people start talking about when you talk about a matchup is, well, who's going to pick up the stars? And Anthony Edwards already did a little bit of
stars of the NBA as opposed to the stars that work at the American.
Yes, the stars in the game as opposed to the Dallas Stars.
Right.
I imagine who picks them up is whoever with the bus.
Yeah,
the bus driver picks them up from the airport.
Plane takes them.
Yeah, but who's going to guard who? Anthony Edwards already put his hand up at the end of their game 7 in the Western Conference semifinals that they played in, saying, I'm going to guard Kyrie. And so you have that one, but then how is this going to match up? Who's going to pick up, who is going to be guarding Luka Doncic? And then how do the Mavericks match up with their star players? We talk about Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, who is someone to be reckoned with. I think that's going to be an interesting thing on how do they end up matching up there.
What's wild about this is going to be like old-fashioned NBA, because the Mavericks, everybody knows in this town that the Dallas Mavericks have had the number one defense in the NBA basically since March. Last 20 regular season games, they've number one defense. But for the entire season, it's been the Minnesota Timberwolves, for those who haven't been paying attention. What's going to be interesting about this matchup is the Stars won't have the opportunity to go inside as much as they did against Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City didn't have bigs. Their bigs didn't really even care about offensive rebounds. They were like, okay, we'll give up through offense. We don't care about those. So the Mavericks try to have lobs inside the paint to their centers, and that's not going to necessarily happen for them.
Yeah, Oklahoma City definitely tried to take that away. If the Timberwolves want to try and take that away, they're going to have a much better time taking that away when you have Rudy Gobert in there.
It's crazy. This is where they're going to really miss Maxi Kleber. We don't know if Maxi Kleber is going to be available for the series. It'd be nice if he could.
And as of right now, there's nothing positive or negative. So I don't think he's going to start this at any time, but maybe during the course of this.
You won't see him in Minnesota, I don't think. I mean, if this thing goes 6 or 7, you might see a cameo. The reason Maxi's so important, people forget, but when the Mavericks went to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago, they had to go through Utah. And Utah had Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley. Rudy Gobert who is the defensive player of the year in the NBA this season.
4-time.
He had to go outside and guard Maxey.
Yeah.
They took him out of the paint. Well, guess what? He going to camp in the paint this year. This season, this series, he may be camping in the paint. So with no Maxey, in other words, with nobody to draw him out, I mean, it's not like Gafford's going to draw him out. It's not like Lively's going to draw him out.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a factor. The coach is going to have to figure some of these things out. Minnesota presents a really, really difficult challenge. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Mavericks went 1-4 against them in the regular season because there was different kind of lineups. But you've got the new lineups with Gafford and P.J. Washington now, but you're Lively doing his thing. It's going to be really, really difficult defensively, to go against this team offensively because they got all kinds of guys. Naz Reid, I mean, they could put him on Luka and make him. In other words, Naz Reid could be just in the middle of the paint when Luka trying to drive. You're going to expect Luka to hit his threes, and he looked good again in Game 6 and in Game 5. He looked good against Oklahoma City with those threes. But do you think he's going to just only shoot threes against Minnesota? I mean, I don't know, man.
I actually think
it's going to be tough.
I think Minnesota will be able to guard better on the perimeter. I think what'll be interesting, though, the Mavs are going to get into pick and roll. Everybody does. It's the modern NBA. Yeah. You mentioned Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert plays a lot of that drop coverage, meaning if there's a pick and roll, he'll just kind of sit back. And I don't think that he's going to step up to the level. So I think Luka Doncic, and I'm leaning on Istok Franco, a fantastic analyst.
Yes, he is.
When it comes to these Dallas Mavericks.
He's in Slovenia right now.
But he does a fantastic job, even from remote. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things he talked about is Luka Doncic is going to have to be really good with what they call the snake dribble or that hostage dribble, where they get this pick and roll, and then he gets that defender on his back or on his hip, and he just kind of plays that defender there because he's going to have space between him and Rudy Gobert because Rudy Gobert is going to sag off. In those places, I think it's going to be very important that you're able to knock down your mid-range and floaters from that place or be able to create from that place. So that's going to be very huge.
The tricky part, though, and people who've been watching the game, and again, I'm thinking the Mavericks going to win the series. I'm not going to tell you the series number, but Luka, he's been hitting the front of the rim because he doesn't have the lift. And so it's going to be real tricky. If you're going to assume you're going to get Luka from Game 5, Game 6 for the whole series, I just don't know. That's the X factor to me. It's like, I don't know. What the Mavericks are going to have to do is they're going to have to steal one of these first two games while Minnesota's recovering from this grueling 7-game stretch against Denver. But here's the thing about it. You're talking about defensively for Minnesota. Minnesota going against the world champions, Denver Nuggets. They didn't let them score 100 points in the games that they won. And I'm talking about the games that Minnesota beat them, and we're talking about they beat Denver 3 times in Denver where the altitude's bad.
Yeah, and I mean, the Nuggets
with the reigning MVP.
Yeah, the Nuggets looked gas.
That's what I'm saying.
The Timberwolves haven't. Like they've got some youthful legs in there.
This is what's so crazy about this. I'm going to say this for all Ranger fans, Stars fans, and Maverick fans. Unlike Cowboy fans, I feel bad for the Cowboy fans. This is not like you're supposed to win this series. Isn't it nice when you go through these playoffs? It's an emotional thing, by the way. But it's not like you go and say, well, we're supposed to win this championship. We're the best team in the league, and we had the best record. We're supposed to. It's our destiny. It's our right. Ranger fans were thrilled when they won this title out of nowhere. Nobody thought the Mavericks would go to the Western Conference Finals this year. You got a youthful team. Maybe they get it next year or even win it all next year. If they win it all this year, be like, oh, my God, I'm so happy. If the Stars win it all this year, oh, my God, I'm so happy. Unlike Cowboy fans are like, I don't believe it until they do it.
And, I mean, there's reasons for that, right?
And I blame Jerry.
The time period. But getting back to these Mavs, I think we talk about Luka. Kyrie's also going to be very important because I don't imagine that the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be attempting to guard him or take him out of the series in the same way the Thunder did where they blitzed him. Although Chris Finch does blitz these guys a lot more, so maybe they do, send those 2 defenders. But it's going to be incumbent on Kyrie to show up more and maybe handle some of this offensive load. And then also,
maybe early.
Yes, absolutely. And another thing is going to be, I think there's an opportunity for a mismatch in a relatively small guard for the Timberwolves. His name is Mike Conley. He's a heady player. He's a veteran, savvy guy. However, He's not a defensive like stalwart. And I think that
he's coming off an injury. He was injured in the first round.
That is true. So it's possible that maybe they try and hunt him. The Mavericks do. On the other end, defensively, it's going to be important to make sure that you figure out how to match up with Karl-Anthony Towns.
You know, that might be the X factor for this series. I always thought he was the X factor for them in all of the playoff rounds. And I'm like Charles Barkley when I look at him. I'm like, he's got all this talent, but it's so inconsistent. It's which cat shows up determines how great they are. You follow me with that? Even that Game 7 win against Denver in Denver, his first half, he was horrible. Second half, oh my God, Cat came alive. He even had a follow-up dunk that basically sealed it for the T-Wolves when Denver was trying to come back. Cat's big guy. And sometimes he can be too silly, and I don't dislike the guy, even though there's a lot of Maverick fans just mad at him because he claims he's the greatest shooting big man of all time.
Right.
And I'm like, what about Dirk? You know what I'm saying? I can't let that go. He's not an unlikable person. He's a very nice guy. But dude, if he's serious, this entire series, he's gonna be a load.
Yeah, and
because he can spread the floor.
Anthony Edwards helps. Like he's that guy that has that gravitas, and he in a way has been a leader for Karl-Anthony Towns and trying to push him to be great. That guy shows a lot because he can shoot, and then also he can drive a little bit. He can put the ball on the ground and attack. So he's going to be something that's important to keep on with because they don't have a lot of places where offense comes from.
Right.
So he is going to be one of those. And then, of course, Derrick Jones Jr. I think is going to be very important because he seems like a guy who could also who could probably pick up that assignment of Anthony Edwards.
Exactly. They're going to try him. They'll probably try some P.J. Washington on him. This is going to be serious. It's all about the matchups. Minnesota's a load. Vegas has the T-Wolves winning this series 65%. They say 65% chance the T-Wolves advance. But guess what? They haven't faced the Mavericks, this version of the Mavericks yet. Even though they went 4-1 against them. And by the way, I got a chance to see them in preseason. That's the team the Mavericks played in Abu Dhabi.
That is true.
I was over there with the Mavericks in Abu Dhabi, and I got a chance to watch how they were doing things and watch how they work. That's a team that has a lot of things going for them. But again, the Mavericks, this could be a Cinderella season for the Mavericks. I can't wait till we do a prediction.
We'll do our predictions in the next hour of the show. But right now, it's the Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Tuesday evening in the DFW. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 1 has been going on this evening, and it's been a little spicy. You talked about how the Timberwolves are a relatively slight favorite in this Western Conference Finals betting-wise. The Boston Celtics present a huge favorite in the East. And as of right now, with 5.7 seconds left in that Game 1, the score is tied at 117 apiece. The Indiana Pacers have really gotten up and down the floor, and they've scored pretty consistently.
You know what they're calling this game?
What's that?
The Larry Bird Bowl. Larry Bird was the superstar for the Celtics. They didn't want him to be their coach. He took talents to Indiana, where he's basically been running it from coaching it back in the day to being in the front office and hiring Rick Carlisle, bringing him back. And so there you go. You don't necessarily have Carlisle versus Porzingis because Porzingis isn't playing yet, but you do have the Larry Bird Bowl, and right now it appears that the Celtics are playing with their food.
Yeah, look, there's always going to be criticisms levied about the Celtics
until they win it all.
And so this is a year where they're heavy favorites.
This is why I was saying about this right now. This year's Celtics are the Cowboys for the last 30 years. You're supposed to win it. You got the talent. Just because you've been this close doesn't mean anything. You better win this. That's extra pressure, unlike Indiana, that's glad to be there, unlike the Dallas Mavericks, the Dallas Stars, and the Texas Rangers, who are like, man, making everybody happy because nobody saw these seasons coming.